Oryx and Thorn are two of the worst, if not the worst, defenders in the game, and Dokkaebi is the most OP attacker. We know next year that we will get 2 operator reworks. Here are some operators that I think will either get reworked, nerfed, or buffed. I'm going to start with Oryx because I think that Oryx is the worst operator in the game, but he could be so good. He just needs a lot of changes. With the basic foundation of Oryx's ability, or for Oryx's ability on paper, he seems really good. He can make rotates, he can go up hatches, he can do so much as a roamer, but at the same time, in reality, in game, he can't really do anything. He makes a rotate, he loses health, and obviously health is such an important part in Siege. I know people will argue, well, it's a one-shot headshot mechanic game. Sure, so in higher ranks, most of the time you're going to get a headshot, but in lower ranks, a lot of the time, that extra HP really makes a difference. He can go up hatches, which again is a fantastic thing to be able to do. However, he's so loud. If Oryx goes up a hatch and you're halfway across the map or the other side of the map, you will know and hear that he has gone up a hatch. So he then has a massive target on his back because there's only so many hatches on a map. He got buffed so he could go through deployable shields as well as OSA shields, but being able to go through an OSA shield is kind of a pointless buff because realistically he'll never be able to get close enough to go through it because either she'll be playing on it or her teammates will be playing on it in theory. Okay, completely pointless is probably too harsh. There is the odd occasion where destroying an ISO shield with Oryx is a viable thing to do, but it's very rare. He can obviously do his dash as well, which makes him a little bit faster. They call it a force speed when he uses it, but it's very quick and it's very straight. You cannot control where it goes, so if you dash towards an attacker, they just have to inch slightly to the left or right and you will miss them, and again that leaves him completely vulnerable. I think vulnerability is the biggest issue I have with Oryx and his ability. All 3 instances of what I've described leaves him vulnerable. His dash leaves him vulnerable, going up a hatch leaves him vulnerable because it's so loud, and then going through rotates or making rotates also leaves him vulnerable because it takes away his health. No matter how good his weapon is, because he has one of the best weapons on defense, he also has a fantastic secondary as well. Like, he has a really good kit, but it doesn't justify bringing him, and an operator shouldn't be determined on how good they are purely based on their kit. Their ability absolutely needs to play a part. So whenever I make these lists, I am considering everything: their weapons, their kit, their ability, but the ability is always the highest thing and should be the highest thing when you think about if an operator is good or bad or not. There are 3 ways in which I would change Oryx to make him a much more viable operator. Now, there is a bug in the game, and I'm going to talk about this first. There's a bug in the game where Oryx can go up the hatch on Stadium Alpha or Stadium 2020. And my question to you, before I go on how I would personally buff Oryx, do you think this would be something you'd like to at least test in a test server, Oryx being able to go up roof hatches in the middle of a round? I see a lot of people ask for this and say that they would like to see this for Oryx. Now, I personally think it would be too OP if he could do this as soon as the round starts. I would kind of like to see this come into a test server to at least test it. But like how on Quick Match, you have the red barrier for spawn peak protection for like 20 seconds. I would like to see that come in with Oryx, where he can go up hatches in the middle of the round potentially. But in the first 20 seconds, there would be like the spawn peak protection just on the hatches. I'm not saying this is something that I think should definitely come into the game, but I would love to see it tested, as you would then have to think more about putting claymores also on hatches on certain maps like Clubhouse, as Oryx could then actually have quite a significant impact, the same as Cafe. And Cafe and Clubhouse are 2 perfect examples where attackers will often just sit on the roof and bait for some of the rounds. With the operator remasters, sometimes they're quite significant and sometimes they're quite minor. Like the recruit reworks or remasters were quite minor. Like they're basically just 2 recruits, they're just their own operators. Like they didn't get anything new. Whereas the Blackbeard remaster is very different to the original Blackbeard. So here is how I would personally remaster / buff Oryx, or at least would like to see tested. Going up hatches a lot quieter, like you can only hear it if you're nearby, not halfway across the map. I would also like for his rotates to not do damage, but they're limited to X amount per round, so he can only do so much damage per round. And I know this is possible because Aruni can only punch a floor so many times until it doesn't actually do any damage to the floor anymore. His dash would be unlimited, just breaking surfaces would be limited to like 10, for example. Because then you might actually get people play Oryx and make the rotates. The other change I would like to personally see is to have a bit more control over his dash. When Oryx was first released or teased, it was kind of advertised that he would be great at dashing attackers. And sure, he's good at shield ops, but for the most part, you can't really dash them. You're just going to, again, leave yourself vulnerable and probably be eliminated. So having a bit more of freedom or fluidity with his dash where he can then like curve it slightly, I think that would make it a much more viable option to do. Because there is so much wrong with Oryx, I think there is a high chance that he might end up being one of the operators to be remastered in year 10. As it's not just part of his ability that is broken or underwhelming, it is every single part of it. I can't think of a single part of Oryx's ability where I'm like, yeah, that's fine. The next operator, which will be a lot shorter than the Oryx spiel, that I think has a high chance of being remastered or buffed in the new year is Thorn. Thorn is one of the worst defenders in the game, like Oryx, because her ability is too slow. If a 3-speed triggers a Razor Bloom, by the time that Razor Bloom has detonated, that 3-speed is 2 rooms away by that point. That is way too slow. Now, I do know positioning of Razor Blooms is like key. However, regardless in all scenarios, I think they're too slow. Thorn can be good when you pair her with other operators like Melusi or Legion, but if you have to solely rely on pairing your operator with another operator, in my opinion, that makes them a bad operator. I think every single operator in the game should be good for at least one unique circumstance, even if it's a rare circumstance. Sen's is an example, or Sen's pre-buff is an example I will use here. Everybody always used to say that Sen's is a pretty terrible op. They're incredibly circumstantial, but there would be some circumstances, even before the buff, where Sen's was still very strong. Certain strats on Border or Clubhouse, for example. As well as bottom floor Oregon. Although, yes, there's only 3 sites in the whole game, Sen's could be considered strong in those scenarios. I can't think of a single scenario where I'm like, yes, bring a Thorn, she's so strong, bring her over any other operator in the game because she's so strong in this scenario. I think there is multiple issues with Thorn. The fact that they're so slow, they're quite big, so they're easy to shoot. Like, I am terrible with aim. Like, I'm so bad. And even I, in high pressure situations, can destroy a Razor Bloom if it detonates. And that's because it gives me an indicator to show me exactly where that Razor Bloom is. Like, as the Razor Bloom and a little arrow, I'm like, okay, cool, I need to look over here. Whereas, if you didn't have the indicator of where that Razor Bloom is, my aim is so bad that I probably wouldn't be able to destroy them in time. But the game literally tells me where it is so I can destroy it quick enough. And then it's slow. So with Thorn, I think I would change 1 or 2 of the following things. Make them detonate quicker. But also, when they do detonate, don't show the player exactly where it is, because then they're just going to shoot them. And yes, obviously you need a counter, but there are counters to Thorn traps. You can preemptively drone, see where it is, and then pre-fire it, because it still takes a second or 2 for it to even register that it's going to detonate. And that side, I wouldn't change. I would still have it that it takes a second or 2, or however long it takes for it to register that it's going to detonate. But once it goes to detonate, I would make that part quicker. But Thorn has been underwhelming for many seasons. Even when she had the 1.5 times, I still didn't see her get brought that much either. Like, even the 1.5 times could not save her. She's been bad since release, in my opinion. I'm sure lots of people disagree with this. This is just my opinion. But when I play a game of Siege, out of 100 rounds, how many times did I see Thorn get brought? 0. In 0 defensive rounds was Thorn brought out of 100. Yes, that is on console. It might be different on PC. I only kept track on console. but when it's that low, when she has a 0% presence out of 100 games, that has to tell you something about how underwhelming or bad the operator must be. The last operator on the list that I think could be reworked or at least heavily nerfed is Dokkaebi. I think we'll see some changes coming with Dokkaebi. They nerfed her this season, and the nerf that they went for literally did not do anything. The reason why Dokkaebi is so strong is because she basically has 5 abilities. The first being that if she eliminates a defender, she can then hack their phones. Now, a lot of people will then try and say, oh, well, you can destroy the phones. Yes, I know, everybody knows that. But most of the time, Dokkaebi is going to roam clear and eliminate a roamer, so no anchor is going to be nearby to destroy that phone. If Dokkaebi manages to eliminate them, she's getting that phone. She then has access to all of your cams. So that's ability 1, but from this, she can then kick any alive defender off of cams. I would say that's ability 2. She can also, which was recently-ish introduced over the last couple of years, now kick dead defenders off of cams too. That's ability 3. And the worst part on this one is that dead defenders cannot hold to turn off the Dokkaebi cams. They have to sit and watch it or just spectate a teammate. I see people say, well, Dokkaebi has always been strong. Yeah, sure, she has been. But it doesn't mean to say she hasn't always been an issue. Like, I started playing in year 4 and I was banning Dokkaebi back in year 4. Since then, she then got extra abilities like kicking dead defenders off of cams, and also the boss G got a massive buff. On top of all of this, she then has what her basic ability is, and that is to call defenders. Now, that call is global, and obviously, it's very loud. It gives her whole team a very good sound cue. Then on top of all of this, previously mentioned as well, she has the Boss G, which is basically a sniper rifle, which pretty much one-shots everybody. And she has a DMR that can destroy hatches. It can make rotate, and she gets pocket EMPs. And I think she might even get the Gun 6 or the SMG 12. Her ability is amazing. Her kit is amazing. Hands down, she is the best operator in the game. She's also the most infuriating one to go against. And sure, I know you can stand by mute jammers to stop that call from connecting, but it doesn't stop or help roamers in any sense. Now, part of my frustration with Siege sometimes is Dokkaebi has so many abilities in one, whereas Zofia had a withstand, which she very rarely got off, and it got removed from the game. Now, I get it to try and be consistent and having passive abilities, etc., but Dokkaebi has so many primary abilities, as well as some of them feel passive too. Whereas if you take operators like Ace, Nomad, or Gridlock throws her track stingers down, and that's it, that's her ability done. Nomad puts her air jabs down, that's it, the ability's done. Ace opens a wall or breaks something, you know that he has that charge, he can use it, destroy something, and there you go, that's done. For Dokkaebi to be able to do everything that she does, she is way too OP, and I think she will face some harsh nerfs / a remaster going into year 10. Now, this is one which I don't know how I would change Dokkaebi personally. I don't know how I would change her, because I don't think she shouldn't deserve to be the strongest op in the game. Somebody will always be the strongest op in the game, and I think Dokkaebi does take skill, and she does deserve to be the strongest op in the game. But I don't know how I'd change her to make her more balanced. So I would be really interested to hear your opinions in the comments below about how you want to see Dokkaebi nerfed or remastered. I see a lot of people saying, oh, I hope that it's no longer global. She has to pick somebody like Deimos, and that's who she goes after. But yeah, I'm curious to hear your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. Who would you like to see remastered going into year 10? Are you hoping for the remasters I said, or is there somebody else that you would like to see?